The command came sharp and cold. Step out of that tent right now, or I'll shoot. The words echoed across the still water, bouncing off the shoreline like a curse. I stayed perfectly still, one finger resting on the edge of my radio, listening as the HOA's Queen Bee rattled off her version of events to the police. They thought I was trapped, cornered like an animal. But they didn't know who they were dealing with. I smiled to myself and reached for the tent zipper. I wasn't about to surrender. This was the move I had been preparing for, the one that would silence them all. 3 weeks earlier, I had come back to my family's land, 15 acres of lakeside property my grandfather had passed down to me. I'd returned to host the fishing festival that had been a Cole family tradition for 3 decades, a gathering my father had kept alive until his death 2 years ago. I thought the countryside would be a quiet refuge after 10 years as a 911 dispatcher in the city. I was wrong. The Lakeside Meadows Homeowners Association decided the lake I'd grown up on suddenly belonged to them. Their leader, Cheryl Montague, was the kind of woman who thought owning the largest house in a subdivision made her royalty. She showed up the day I set up camp at the water's edge, her little army of board members marching behind her. She was dressed in expensive casual clothes, bleached blonde hair pulled so tight it dragged her face into a permanent scowl, and a thick folder clutched under one arm. "You need to leave immediately," she barked. "This lake falls under HOA jurisdiction. Unauthorized camping and gatherings violate multiple rules." I rose slowly, brushing dirt from my jeans. "With all due respect, ma'am, this property has been in my family for over 40 years. The HOA has no jurisdiction here. I have every right to be on my land." Her face turned red, anger sparking in her eyes. She wasn't used to hearing no. "That's where you're wrong, Mr. Cole. The lake was incorporated into HOA boundaries when this community was founded. We have paperwork. What you're doing is trespassing." I glanced at her folder, imagining the doctored papers inside. "Show me legitimate documents and I'll review them. But my family's ownership is legally sound, and the festival will continue." Her trump card came next. She whipped out her phone. "Fine. If you won't leave, I'll call the police. We'll see how confident you are when you're explaining yourself to the sheriff." What she didn't know was that while she dialed, I was already listening. Years of dispatching had taught me the value of monitoring what people said when they thought no one was paying attention. The scanner inside my tent had been quietly recording every word from her walkie-talkies. I had prepared for this moment. Documentation, equipment, even contacts. Tonight, it was time to use it. When the police arrived, Cheryl expected me to panic. Instead, I stepped out of my tent, calm as a man holding all the cards. A small crowd of curious neighbors watched. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my old dispatcher's badge. "My name is Ethan Cole. For 10 years, I was senior emergency dispatcher for this county. I know more about 911 protocols than anyone here. And I've been recording everything." The silence was sweet. Cheryl's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Her board members shifted uneasily. Then the patrol cars pulled up, sirens cutting through the tension. Chief Marcus Webb stepped out, his expression unreadable, but I caught the flicker of recognition in his eyes. He knew me. Cheryl leapt forward, regaining some false bravado. "Officer Webb, this man is trespassing on HOA property." "It's Chief Webb," I corrected deliberately. Then I nodded toward the hood of his cruiser. "Chief, I think you should hear something." I played back Cheryl's own voice from my scanner, instructing her board to exaggerate my behavior and claim I was threatening them. The color drained from her face. Then I produced my family's original property documents and a conservation easement signed in 1987, proving the lake was protected land and forever outside HOA control. An elderly woman stepped forward from the crowd. I remember processing that easement myself. Her voice was strong and authoritative. "My name is Ruby Sinclair. I worked as a county court clerk for 35 years. Those documents are legitimate, and I've seen the HOA's so-called jurisdiction papers. They're fraudulent." The weight of her words landed like a hammer. Marcus's jaw tightened. Cheryl's mask cracked. And then, as if fate itself was helping me, a flashlight beam swept across the water and caught something hidden beneath the surface. Metal posts, wooden planks. "What the hell is that?" Marcus muttered. The young officer with him waded into the shallows and uncovered a half-submerged structure, a floating stage wired for electricity. Not a dock, not temporary, a permanent platform built illegally in a protected lake. The live stream I'd started on my phone was exploding with viewers. And just then, Jake Thompson, an old friend turned reporter, arrived with his camera gear. He captured everything: the illegal platform, the fraudulent permits ziplocked to its beams, and Cheryl's name stamped across them as principal contractor. Ruby examined the papers and declared them forgeries. The unraveling was spectacular. Then came the real bombshell. Hidden beneath the platform was a waterproof container stuffed with cash, falsified permits, and photographs of county officials taking bribes. Federal-level corruption, sitting in the mud at the bottom of my family's lake. Cheryl's composure shattered. Federal agents were called in. The scandal ballooned beyond a property dispute. And then a young officer ran her name through the national database. The results silenced even the online crowd. Cheryl Montague had been a fugitive for 10 years, wanted for real estate fraud in another county. Ruby gripped my arm. "Ethan, what was your father's name? When did he pass?" "David Cole," I said quietly. "2 years ago." Her expression hardened. She remembered the case: fraudulent attempts to steal land from dying property owners. Cheryl had targeted my father, hounded him with false offers, and forged documents while he was battling cancer. He had resisted, and she had spent years scheming to finish what she started. Rage burned in my chest as I remembered his sleepless nights, the forged bank letters, the fake medical bills meant to scare him. He had carried that weight to his grave, never knowing the full scope of the predators circling us. Jake played his final card: 6 months of footage showing Cheryl bribing officials, directing illegal construction, and declaring, "The Cole property will be mine by the end of the year." That was the end of her. Federal agents closed in, reading her rights. But Cheryl had one last absurd idea: escape. She bolted into the lake, splashing toward freedom in her designer clothes. The crowd gasped, then laughed as she thrashed, screaming, "I can't swim!" She clung helplessly to the very posts of her illegal platform until officers pulled her out, soaked and defeated. It was over. The investigation tore through the county like wildfire. Dozens of arrests, millions recovered, 4 counties implicated. Cheryl pled guilty to fraud, racketeering, and environmental crimes. She was sentenced to federal prison, her empire reduced to rubble. For me, the victory was personal. My father's honor was restored. He had never betrayed our legacy. He had fought silently, refusing to sign away our future, even while cancer consumed him. Ruby helped me uncover proof that he had resisted more than a dozen fraudulent attempts. His strength had saved us. The HOA was dissolved, rebuilt under Ruby's guidance with transparency and accountability. The annual fishing festival became more than a tradition. It became a symbol of resistance, drawing thousands. Our lake was restored, placed under stronger conservation protections than ever before. 6 months later, I stood at the same shoreline where everything began. The water was calm, the sky a perfect mirror. Children laughed, learning to fish where my father once taught me. The platform was gone, the corruption dismantled, but the lake remained, ours, protected, eternal. I realized then what justice truly meant. Not just courtrooms or arrests, but ordinary people refusing to be intimidated, refusing to let corruption win. The tools had been simple: public records, radios, documentation. But the will to fight back, that was what mattered most. And as I watched the festival unfold, I knew the lake would carry this story long after I was gone. Not just of one family's legacy, but of truth, resilience, and the moment justice rose from the water and dragged corruption down with it.